Hi folks, welcome to another episode of the Friendly Council, our deck building series that we are doing with the Friendly Open group. And joining me, a couple of very special people, and the first among them is my usual co-host, Hannes. Hello.
Hi, Miha. Thanks for having me again.
Always a pleasure, Hannes. So who is our other guest tonight?
We have our amazing colleague from Friendly Open, Renaud. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, guys? What's up?
Glad that you could make it. And I'm really curious. So, what do you like to play? What are you presenting today?
Oh, what a surprise. Targaryen. Yeah.
Ooh, nice. And what kind of agenda are we playing?
Free folk. Not free folk, free companies today.
Okay, very, very cool. Yeah, we had free folk already. Now we get free companies.
Yeah, a real
That's
card deck.
nice. Nice, nice. I'm looking forward to it. Free companies, I think, with Targaryen, I smell mercenaries. Is that the theme or is it something else?
Yeah, it's mainly around the mercenaries. And yeah, it's a little version with Lisonomar, which is the new card from the European champion Reynard
Mm-hmm.
from As High as Honor. So, yeah.
Okay. And what's basically the general strategy with the deck? So what kind of deck is it? How do you want to win a game with this?
So this deck is kind of tempo and really you need to set up your board and really play the power challenges, defend, and really play with the discard pile. So
Okay.
it's really influenced by Marine and sort of Barristan Selmy and Tyrion. So it's really a discard pile thing, draw, discard, and like this circle around those areas. If you guys are ready, we can dive in and start with maybe with the plots.
Okay, yeah, it's so you start with the plots. Great, yeah, let's hear it.
So classic opener, Late Summer Feast.
Yeah. So to get some gold going for building backboard and getting characters on the
Yeah,
board.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bren the Builder,
Mm-hmm.
Close Call,
Mm-hmm.
Counting Coppers,
All right.
The Father.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, I think. I see where this is going, I think, yeah.
Pointy End,
Oh, interesting, okay.
and the Harris.
Okay, cool. I would say it's a very, let's say, standard plot line, right? So
Yeah.
there's nothing super special. Pointy end is, I think, a nice touch, but apart from that, nothing is especially weird going on here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Pointy Hand could be interchanged with maybe First Snow.
Mm-hmm.
First Snow and the Harris together are really strong. You can bounce crossing decks with First Snow, and you can First Snow into the Harris for big aloof decks. So it helps squeeze the opponent. But let's keep the opponent on the side for now, and let's dive in what the deck can do. With mainly we can also with the Father and the Harris. The thing is with this deck is the restricted character is Aegon, 3 of.
Mm-hmm.
So finding a way to make him jump the board and come back to hand, or just get rid of him off the board, so you can play him again. The Father is a good tool for that. At some extent, at some point, if you need the Harris for it, of course you're not gonna play the Harris turn 2, so
Mm-hmm.
you want to wait with your Daenerys as long as you can, or depending on your opponent's board or presence. But yeah, the father is a great plot to help you recur Aegon on turn 2. So mainly late summer feast on turn 1 and the father turn 2, but this might change depending on the cards you get and the opening hand, the setup. It might go late summer feast, Brandon Builder, the father, or late summer feast, the father, Brandon Builder. More or less, it goes around those 3 plots.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and with Aegon, it's of course one of the key piece as a character. And what do you build around him? What kind of mercenaries and other characters do we see?
Yeah, the main trigger, usually the trigger for Aegon was Dario, but now you want to go with gold stuff. So Vargo Hoat, 3 of, is your main target or your main engine, let's say.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and there's a little little tweak or a little tip here for when you will play this deck. You can marshal Aegon if you already have Vargo Hoat in hand, and marshal Aegon, get Vargo into play, stack Besto into him, and just put a dupe on Vargo Hoat in marshalling.
Nice.
So yeah. So for new players or maybe players who have not played mercenaries, this is a little setup you wanna go forward and start your engine with Vargo Hoat. Because Vargo Hoat will then be able to feed, or at least to help Tyrion. Tyrion from the Jade Sea.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go 3 of. And the little trick with Aegon and Vargo that does help you set up the board, especially if you're first and your opponent didn't marshal any begging brothers, there's no cancel against you. So instead of putting Aegon in shadows and jumping in Vargo Hoat later in the challenges phase, you want to set up your stuff.
Right, and this basically works with any unique mercenary, right? So do you ever do it with other characters or just with Vargo?
Mainly with Vargo. You can do it with Dario also. Maybe later on, maybe turn 3, if you did the father turn 2 and take back Aegon, and you can jump in Dario also with a dupe. But in the first turns, well, at least turn 1, if you have already a Vargo Hoat in hand, you can Aegon directly into play and in marshalling and take the dupe on Vargo Hoat. You'll save a couple of gold. You'll save some cancel. Of course, playing against Greyjoy, well, we already know Vince will be there, so it's always a shitty card, yeah. So.
All right, so you have Vargo and you have Tyrion as 2 key mercenary characters, and Tyrion can bring one in, Aegon can bring stuff in, and you mentioned already that Dario is not super central, but that you do have him in the deck. How often do you run him?
A 3 of.
Yeah, he's still really good, right?
Yeah, exactly. The deck relies on the discard pile, so Dario, you don't want to marshal him necessarily. You want to mainly Tyrion will bring him into play.
Yeah, that sounds right. If you have too many of the big guys on the board, right, that you're also vulnerable against resets, I guess.
Yeah, and your own Daenerys, so want to tempo the thing out. And don't be scared we'll dive in the locations later on, but don't be scared to ditch a copy of Dario into the discard with Marine, because you'll get it back in with Tyrion or Aegon. We will see not mercenary, but Merenice's market. So you can always put your stuff back into your deck if you need to Aegon a trigger. Yeah.
Very nice. Do you have other big guys in the deck apart from Dario?
Yeah, so let's go with the 3 Barristan Selmy from For the Realm.
Oh, nice. So basically one key non-mercenary card as well.
Yeah.
He's super strong, right?
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing, and he can feed your discard pile, which we will see later on what we can do also with the discard pile, and other discard effects.
Yeah.
Going forward with that, the Begging Brother is one of. This is a slot where we can have a discussion around, is it 1, is it 2, is it 3, depending on your playstyle, depending on the meta, depending on what you're playing against. Yeah, it's a mercenary deck, so it's not a big-ass cancel deck, so this is a debate we can have. So for players who are more comfortable with more cancel or more control, you could go to Begging Brothers, but for this list now, it's a one of.
Yeah. Yeah, personally, I'm always a minimum 2 Begging Brothers guy, but I can totally see the point of using the slot for something else as well.
Yeah.
Right.
One of Lil Chud Brown Ben Plum.
Yeah, very cost efficient.
Yeah. 2 Freedmen.
Also nice from the discard pile.
And followed by the Freedmen, the Golden Company. 3 of.
Oh yeah, I think it's a really strong card, and it really plays really well. You know, it gives another renown option for Vargo, right?
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
also a card that can save itself from going back to hand if you do the marshalling trick with Aegon, right? If it's necessary.
There's a timing. Yeah, there's a timing in the marshalling. I think we will need to check the rules on that because Aegon comes into play at the end of the phase, and there's an interrupt. We would need to check the rules for that. Either the rules are good, or I don't remember the scenario, the situation, or it's on the Iron Throne. There's something. I think there's a little bug.
Yeah, it will cause some problems if things happen simultaneously. But
Yeah,
just
exactly.
rules-wise, so Aegon puts a character into play, and then at the end of the phase it returns it to hand, and that would mean it would happen later than Golden Company. There's really no conflict here. Because it interrupts itself being returned to hand. So whatever the timing point is, it would work. So the problem is when you have multiple characters going into the hand at the end of a phase, and then you need to make sure they go in the correct order so that the Golden Company is still in play to save something else. And if there is more than one returning at the exact same timing point with a delayed effect, then the first player will decide the order. But the Iron Throne, I think, does it. I'm not sure. I think does it in the order in which the abilities were originally triggered. I think that's how it does it, because it so rarely comes up and it's not really properly implemented. So if something like that happens, you would need to do it manually. But in this case, I think if you marshal Aegon in the marshalling phase to put Golden Company into play, it's unlikely that you will come into this situation where you have more than one of these delayed effects happening at the end of marshalling.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so 3 Golden Companies, and at the beginning you mentioned that you also have Lysonomar, the new card designed by Rana Chevcik. How often do you play him?
Oh, 3 of. Such a good card. Such a good card.
Can you tell us a little bit what do you use him for? Because his ability is quite special, I would say. It's probably the only card that has this type of ability.
Yeah, the ability. I will use the word breaks. The ability breaks the framework of the game because it forces the opponent to declare defenders before. So it brings up a new. We can put up the sheet that we've done for the timing, but it creates like a tiny window before the actual timing. So it's really interesting to see and to have played him a couple of games here and there. Mostly on opponents. I mean, the opponent will unoppose the challenge most times. So it's interesting to have an unopposed and an insight. And with the deck, we're going to go forward with the other characters, but stacking renown and going to a big power challenge with the Sonomar. You have some insight, you have some renown, you have some effects with Barristan Selmy. That's really interesting.
Okay, nice. It's interesting that you said that your experience is that people tend to not defend it at all, and because my intuition would have been that it works the way that people overcommit, and then you just poke basically, and then you have the next challenges free to go over the board. But yeah, it's definitely a cool and new thing in this deck.
Yeah, exactly. Before Lisono, I was trying out the Septon UT.
Mm-hmm.
UTT, Septon UTT. But it was so hard to stack gold on him and to have gold. It's possible in to set up your board in going forward with multiple gold on unique characters, but it was too much work for the 1 gold extra on Lisonomar to have insight and the funky, cool ability that he has. So yeah, I think Septon Ut is out of the picture.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, it's always good to hear that, and maybe for those listeners who are new to deck building, it really depends on your play style. So I had also, as a mercenary-ish deck type built together with a friend, and we went exactly the other way around. We tossed out Lysan Omar and kept Septon out, also for a couple of different reasons. But this is always, I think, super cool to hear. That there can be different approaches to the same deck type, and that it really also then depends that not one card is per se always better. So that's really nice.
Yep, absolutely. So
Okay.
going forward with 2 Second Suns.
Yeah, really cost efficient.
2 Shagwell.
Mm-hmm.
So Shagwell is known to be the card in the Mummers deck, but he's also a mercenary, so he can have some interesting keywords.
Mm-hmm.
Targaryen Loyalist, 3 of.
Yeah, makes sense.
And 2 Viserys Corsets.
Okay, so for attachment removal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Always.
So that would be 34 characters, if I count correctly.
Yep.
Okay.
I would go forward with attachments and events.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 milks and 1 seized.
Okay. So mostly negative, exclusively negative attachments. Have you considered mercenary contract, which would have been, an obvious thing maybe for Barristan, or do you think that's overkill?
Oh no, it's a good card. It's a good card. Also, if you want to play it out, you can slide 1 in. It's extremely good. If you're second, maybe if the plot deck were maybe more on the maiden and you're going second and you want to put some mercenary contracts on the opponent, and then put into play your Dario and play defensive, but keep your Dario up so you can attack and steal the opponent and trying to steal some renown to close the game. It's always fun. Yeah, it's a good card.
Okay. And for events, what do you play for events?
So both three of our word is good as gold.
Another jumper event, nice.
And the generosity event.
Yes.
Which wasn't played before this agenda.
Yeah. Okay. And what about the other mercenary event, beneath the gold, the bitter steel? Have you considered that one?
I always take it out, weirdly. Yeah.
So it's basically, it would be against negative attachments. It gives some renown, which you probably don't need. And I think it's probably only very, very strong if you have 3 gold on a mercenary.
But yeah.
Yeah, because then you get additionally intimidate and insight for a phase. And the question is, does that happen too little for you, or why did you check it out?
Yeah, too little. Each time that I have this card in my hand, I have the feeling that I should have something else, and it's not the appropriate time to have that card. It's a good card, but yeah, it feels always not the appropriate time to have it. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. It's also, it's amazing if you can play it on Tyrion, and he has
absolutely
stealth and renown and insight and intimidate, and you can copy it with Vargo. But yeah, if this only happens every 5 or 6 games, then yeah, it's probably better to use the slots for other cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, then we have locations left as the last part, right?
Yes. So 16 should be at 34 characters, 4 attachments, 6 events, and we have 16 location. So a classic, good old classic flea bottom, 2 of.
Yeah.
Because we're playing with the discard, and a good old classic flea bottom with second sun. It's always excellent. 2 estate, core set, Illyrios estate. 3 marine.
Yeah.
3 markets. 3 iron bank. The redesigned one, which is still good, but it's still a deck that is tempo, so the Iron Bank is playing his part on later rounds. So the long game, you really need to set up your stuff with this deck. You can't go crazy. This is not an aggro Khal Drogo deck. So
yeah, I think we see a lot of the Iron Bank in Free Companies decks. So before the redesign, the plan with the Iron Bank was to get some crazy numbers on it. So it basically doubled itself each round, right? So you could get 100 gold on it. But now, since Free Companies can always refill it if it goes down to 0, and there is Unbridled Generosity as well. And some decks, I guess Lannister has an easier way than that even. They can get gold back on it, so you see players just spending it sometimes if the money is tight, and then just do Free Companies in the draw phase, for instance, the following round, and goes back up to 2 immediately.
So what's your typical strategy? Do you basically use it as a default +2 each round, or do you try to get it up to give you +5, in round 4 or 5 or something like that?
Yeah, if you're still in the game at round 4 or 5, you want to stack it up. You want to tempo it out so you can have the maximum value out of it. And with the Free Companies agenda, you can set it up.
It's really an advantage, right? So else often you would not want to do that, right? So it's a dead card on setup. and as a one-cost, non-limited card, it becomes actually quite useful in setup, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
Yeah, with the agenda, you can before before the marshalling phase, you can have a plot action and kneel your faction to use the free companies and put a gold on the Iron Bank, so you get it rolling right away.
so Iron Bank is really nice. And what are the last three locations?
The OP card from the core set, 3 Rose Roads.
Very nice. 60. That looks promising. All right, so you have 60 cards, and I think I have a rough idea where it's going, but how would you basically advise to play? So, what's the general strategy that you go about with this deck?
So earlier we talked about the turn 1, set it up. It's not mandatory, but you can marshal Aegon, or depending on your matchup, you can put him in shadows. But you want to set up your Vargo Hote, and depending on your economy and your first hand, your first draw, you wanna marine if you have gold, right? If you have 2 gold left in marshalling, you usually don't marine. Even if you have Vargo on the board or Tyrion, if you have 2 gold left, but you're at turn 4 and the Iron Bank is loaded, now you can. So Marine is also a tempo card. You don't want to go into Marine just to go into Marine and just load your discard pile for no reason and get the 3 copies of Barristan Selmy in the discard pile. It's not the goal, right? So
yeah, interesting that you should say that. So just today I played some practice games for the World Cup. I have to practice with my teammates sometimes, and I played Targaryen, and I am completely clueless with Meereen. I don't know how to use it correctly, and that thing happened all the time. And I just Meereened with I marshaled what I could, then Meereen. There was no gold for whatever was drawn with that, and it was just a complete waste. So I guess the important part here for you is the cost that you need to pay. So you discard 1 card from your hand, and this is not just the worst card in your hand, right? It's the one you want in your discard pile, because you can eventually get it back into play somehow with either with Tyrion or with Flea Bottom, for instance, or just
yeah, exactly.
Freedmen maybe.
Freedmen are the main targets. Second Sons, same thing, because you have Flea Bottom. Flea Bottom, you can put Begging Brothers. You can, like we said, we talked earlier, Dario, because he'll come into play with Tyrion. Or if you are low on gold, you put Dario back with the markets, and our word is good as gold in the challenge phase to put Dario back into play. So our word is good is only the top 10 cards, but even if you put Dario back under your deck, you usually find a good mercenary in your top 10 cards. So
yeah, seems impossible to miss in this deck, really.
Yeah. And going back to Marine, of course it's 3 cards and you want to draw, and most people are trying to draw and to, let's say that Marine has a high variance, so you want to lower it down. If you have the gold to put into play, the next 3 cards are coming in your hand. So it's not like a Target Assault of the Shadow where you just want a Marine and you can reduce the variance of the Marine itself, where you can put the cards in shadows. You miss less good cards when you can put them into shadows, but here it all goes down into the discard pile, so you really need to tempo it out with Econ.
Okay.
Or at least with Tyrion on the board, so you can put a mercenary back on the board and control
Yeah.
the power challenge and your board state.
But from the characters, it's only Targaryen Loyalist, Barristan, and Aegon who cannot come back from the discard pile, right? And Viserys, right? All else could come in through either Flea Bottom or through Tyrion.
And the event.
Yeah, and the event, yeah. Okay, yeah, but so that's quite some flexibility that you get there, right? And you also can have these chains, right? You could get Our Word is Good and then get Tyrion, and Tyrion gets one from the discard pile and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's really a chain of recursion and building your board. You tempo your challenges, you protect your power, you get some renown on some golden company, you raise the claim with Barristan, put a freedman into play. So you really need to read the opponent's board, or really need to read the challenge's resolution to prepare your defense and your attack. Yeah.
Okay.
And no
So
Miss
it's
Sunday in the
also-
deck. Sorry, Hannes. No Miss Sunday among the characters.
No Miss Sunday.
Because usually Marine decks, since she's such an easy discard, will take her, or decks that have any discard abilities, basically.
Yeah, no Miss Sunday. Ooh, she could be. So if you have any observation or questions, you want to switch some cards, or here we have a little few slots we can modify for Miss Sunday, or there's a Targaryen loyalist. You can go down to 2. You talked about earlier the event, but yeah. Oh, there's a 1 of Astapor you can play, but it's still costly. This costs a lot.
Yeah, and the agenda doesn't really work with it, right? Because it can only
No.
place gold on cards without gold. So once it has its gold, you can no longer just keep filling it with that.
You can fully load it at 4, and you can generosity on it to build it up to 5, but there's
And
I
Vargo, I
guess
guess, as well, if he's in play.
yeah, if you have it all in play, it can be done. But if you're playing against Greyjoy with Victorian, well, that's all going to the trash, right? So it's going down to the bin. So or Murmur, or Night Flyers. Yeah.
So, but I imagine that the deck needs a little, getting used to with these chains, then the different triggers, then in what order do I do the challenges, especially with less Son Omar, and then Dario who can stand or maybe steal a character. That's probably not something that you can play really well right the first time you have it, or that's how I imagine it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it needs a little. It needs some reps. Yeah.
Okay, but that's probably also what makes it really interesting to play, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Cool.
one last thing, the plots we've just started with, of course, in this video, and we haven't really talked in detail, but now that we know the deck a little bit, so one thing that immediately stands out, there is no March to the Wall, even though you're using your discard pile quite a lot. So is there any particular reason? Do you just not have the kind of aggressive strategy that reduces the board into a good march so that you would get a good target on the opponent's side?
Yeah, mainly because your board in the first round will be not wide enough, and because of the cards going back to your hand, either with Aegon, either with the event.
Yeah.
And the father seems to work better because you can have the opportunity or the flexibility to control at some point the opponent's board also. So yes, March to the Wall can do the same thing, but you don't choose what target you the opponent's goes back to his hand. So Pointy Head could be switched with March to the Wall if that could be interchanged. Yeah.
And
So
we
then,
talked about First Snow a little bit. So there is also Mad King's Command is an interesting plot that I think with a deck that can cheat characters into play in the challenges phase, when you go down to 3 and you could get, for instance, with Aegon into Tyrion, something like that, you could get a bit more bored. Have you considered that maybe?
The worst matchup would be Tyrell Summer or Tyrell Many-Face God. So shitting the locations around and putting New Randall into play and putting too many characters into play with all the effects from the location. Mad Kings would, of course, be the perfect setup for that. The perfect reset. I mean, not the setup, but the perfect reset to control the opponent. And just like you said, if Mad King could be good to keep an event in hand and to maybe marine a character and jump it in with Tyrion in the challenge phase. This is something that would needs to be tested. Yeah.
Okay. So, if you have a deck like Night's Watch Aloof, where they slap on these big characters on there, do you have enough power with your jumpers and the mercenaries to go against that, or is that a problem with the deck?
I think that this deck is pretty solid against Night's Watch Aloof. Let's pretend Night's Watch Aloof is playing the big army and usually goes more intrigue icons than power. So with the power of the current deck, you are in a better position.
Okay. And then you can also let them go first, intimidate one character, but then bring in others after they basically have had their challenges and hit back.
Yeah, with all the jumping stuff you have and the event and flea bottom. Well, maybe not flea bottom if the army attacks because of the assault keyword, but all in due time you can also jump with Tyrion and or Aegon and or the event. Yeah.
Okay. And like something else, if you face off against the Targaryen mirror, but they are playing Evil Burn, can you withstand that because you have no event cancel?
Leave. Concede and leave.
Oh yeah, I feared as much. Yeah. Okay, so not ideal.
No, there's no point. No, there's no point. Stark Crossing will be. If you're playing against Stark Crossing, of course you need to switch something for snow.
Yeah.
I think it will be too fast, and I think even though you have some power icons, I think it will be too fast. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't play every single matchup, but Night Switch Aloof is a good one. Stark Crossing is rather a bad one. Tyrell Many-Face God would be at some point bad if the opponent has too many location and too much the reach to raise the claim. You can handle a few turns, but the Tyrell deck is going crazy with the power and you really need the MKC in that situation. Martel 3-2-1 concede leave. Targ Prince against big aggro decks will not be easy, but if you can defend. Don't try to keep your Dario up. Just defend the military and keep your board. In this version, there's one of close calls, so you're have some sort of backup plan, and if you close call into the discard pile, you have also something going back into the deck. So that's an option there too. What else?
Well, like Bara control with Neil, like Miha likes to play. I don't. It would be interesting to see, because on the one hand, the jumpers would be hard to control. On the other hand, if the power challenges are really important, there Bara is strong, has many answers, and Melisandre can also trigger in challenges phase with
the
an event.
Three milks on
Yeah.
Melisandre, on her.
Yeah. Okay.
Delena, well, there's no many.
Terrible.
Yeah, that's why the 3 milks, you need some control if you're going second, or if you can be second. Or at least just to control if you're playing against, let's say, Greyjoy, Filthy, Greyjoy, what else? Well, Greyjoy just plays Filthy, and they want to go first, so you just slap the milk on them, make sure you can defend, because we do not so will hit milk. Yeah, there's some good answers to some decks. It's any Rains deck, you can control any Rains. Wait for your milk for Cersei, a Tywin, and you can defend the intrigue. You have a couple of intrigue icons in the deck. Make sure you defend the win by 5. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the Lannister deck, the Free Companies deck that goes crazy with the cancels would be pretty awkward, right?
Oh, yeah. I would play some Targ Valyrian Steel against Free Company.
Yeah.
Alright, so we have quite an interesting deck here. So one thing we've had for many years basically now with Aegon, that strategy Aegon in the challenges phase into Dario, and it's interesting to see how this has now developed. So the design team has supported the mercenary team quite a lot with Targaryen, and I know some people would prefer the design team supported Burn, but this is the deck I think that benefited the most from the new cards. And now we have Dario in a situation where basically the whole board could be mercenaries, and he can, instead of stealing characters from the opponent, he can stand his own characters, and it's a completely different playstyle, and it's nice to see. And in the Greyjoy episode that we did quite a while back now, I talked about how the deck was using a lot of the core set cards, and it was quite friendly for beginner players, but this one I like for the opposite reason. So it's using a lot of the recent cards, and some of them, like the event for instance, you don't see that often. So I think it's very interesting that we were able to present this deck today. Would you agree with that, Hannes?
Absolutely, yes. Thanks a lot, Renaud. I think this is a really, really fun deck. Not super beginner friendly, but I think something where you can also really develop your skills upon, trigger here, trigger there, which is the right order. And it looks like it would be a lot of fun to play.
It's a really fun deck. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so thanks a lot for joining us. So for those that don't know, you've not heard Renaud before, but you have seen his work on this Friendly Council series, because he is the person behind those Friendly Council thumbnails that we have for each faction, which are really beautiful. So thanks a lot for doing that for us, and also for maintaining the Friendly Open website and the Discord servers. Great job with all of that.
Thanks to you, thanks to everyone for keeping the game alive, and keep playing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having our first real Targaryen episode, Thank you so much, Miha, for hosting it, and thank you all for listening, and we see you then in the next episode. Bye bye.